All right, so I think we've got our whole crowd here tonight. Looks like it's going to be a nice intimate crowd, which I think will actually be a wonderful benefit. We get a lot of insight for all of you guys here. So we're very excited to have Jenna here. Jenna is a close friend of the firm. She is the leader of Get Me Into College. We've experienced what Jenna does, both from a secondhand and a firsthand perspective, as much as the fact that one of our partners, Mr. Mark Rock, his daughter, has worked with Jenna and has seen some great results. So very excited to see what her insights are here to share with you guys tonight. We'll also be following up with a different perspective as well, including a little bit of how Fountainhead approaches the college planning process. I think you'll find that what each of us do is very symbiotic, and the combination of the two leads to a really great approach to college, which we know is a very emotional time. And if we can approach that with a lot of certainty and strategy behind it, hopefully it makes that stressful process a little easier. So I'm going to kick it off to Jenna, and she's going to lead the way.
Thank you, Ray. Your second favorite Jenna. So nice to meet you all. My name is Devin Schulman. I'm the founder and owner. A little background of me. I won't bore you because I know we're on a little time crunch here. So I've had the business for 10 years now, which is crazy, and it's evolved a lot of part thanks to my mom as well, who also now works for me. We worked with over 750 students during the 10 years, mostly from the tri-state area. So we've seen really every type of student, family dynamic, financial situation, different goals, different, attributes, different, backgrounds and academic journeys. We've also toured about 300 colleges across the country. So I was just in Santa Barbara this past weekend. I've gone to the UK to see schools. So we go all over and we meet with the financial aid departments, but admissions as well. And we also, do everything with the students from beginning to end. I'm guiding them through the whole application process, which to Bryce's point does have a lot to do with finances as well. But the essays, the interviews, the application, I'll go into a little bit of detail about what goes into the college application process. So for the next 10 or so minutes, I'll talk about just the overview of college admissions, the college admissions landscape. I recognize that people have, different kids with different academic backgrounds. So I tried to make this very general, but definitely here to answer questions at the end. And we'll get into it. So, and you can because it's intimate, you could pause me at any time to ask questions. I already can't work the. What do I do?
I'll get the laptop.
It works before. Okay, there we go. Okay. Cool. So this is a little bit more about what we do. So I'm based in Florham Park, so not too far away. My background's in journalism. I did work in admissions at my alma mater, the University of Maryland. So kind of really bridge those two interests together to start this business 10 years ago. And fun fact, I've never taken one business class in my life, and look at me now. As opposed to probably all of you here that work here that have taken lots of business classes. So the overview of the college admission process. This is just kind of what's been going on with why we have gotten so competitive over the past few years. There's a lot of trends, a lot of different information about college admissions. So there's a lot of rise in competition. Since COVID, there's been a really big influx of this standardized testing, test optional, what that means. And now we're going back to requiring scores. We're in this in between period with the SAT, the ACT, this idea of a holistic review process, which I'll get more into it. The financial aid game is changing. I think that, New York Times over the summer put out that colleges for the first time are about to hit $100,000 a year for some of them. They're shifting admission priorities. There's a lot of these terms that you'll hear about, early decision, early action, and just, overview of the mental health as it relates to college. And this is my biggie, the misinformation that's out there. With the rise of TikTok now, anyone can get on into TikTok and tell all the students out there that, this is what I got to get into Stanford and this is what you need to do. So I'm always debunking those myths. It's a little bit more about like the college landscape. A lot of people ask me like, I applied in 1995 and I had a 3.2 and I had a 1200 and I got into a very selective college and like what's going on? That would never happen these days. So a lot of that has to do with some of these factors. So one being, an increase in applications. I think about 10, 15 years ago, students applied, I think on average it was like 5 in this area, and now my students are applying to like 15 to 20 colleges. So with the addition of the common application, we're seeing a lot more applications being submitted. The Common App is a portal that centralizes all the applications into one. So it makes it really much more palpable to apply to a lot of different schools at once. And so students are, putting in their applications to a lot of different places to see what they get into, as opposed to focusing on like a few. A lot of colleges in result of that, as well as with, a big increase of students going to college now, we're seeing very low acceptance rates. So really kind of like educating families on that. And, different schools have shifted their admissions protocols over the past years and have different, acceptance rates over the past years. This is like one chart to just show, take UCLA, for example, back in 2000, 37,000 applicants, and 2023, we saw almost 170,000 applicants. UCLA is the most applied to school in the world, so I definitely use like a bit of an extreme example here. But, and UCLA is actually not on the common application, so it's actually a harder application to fill out, and students still want to go. For UCLA in particular, like they're test blind. So you don't have to send your test, you can't send your test scores even if you get a perfect score. So it really kind of attracts a lot of people that might not have advantages for test taking. It attracts a lot of international schools, but you can just see how in 23 years, how much it's changed. Like keeping the trend of UCLA, the acceptance rate in just, can't do the math here, never 7 years, 8 years has decreased, pretty significantly. You could see during COVID, it's a little bit different right after. That was, definitely an outlier year, but, it hasn't really been that long, and it's pretty significant with regard to acceptance rate. A big thing that is talked about now in college admissions is the confusion over test optional policies. A lot of colleges, are test optional now since the pandemic, when students were unable to take the test. So, because of that, there is a little bit of this mixed messages on, do I send a score? Do I not send a score? Will the score help me? Will the score hurt me? So it's definitely added to confusion, and it's also added to an increase of applications, because now students, if in the past they might have had a great GPA, not a great test score, never would have applied to college X, but now they're putting their hat in the ring, is that the expression, to see if they can get in, because they no longer require. So it's definitely, increasing the application pool. One of the things that students ask me all the time is about, what should I do about submitting or not submitting? I won't go into too much detail about this, but, it's definitely kind of like on a case-by-case basis of whether you should submit scores. Some students are just like not strong test takers, and they're so great in class and they're so great academically, but that 4-hour standardized test does not show a great reflection of who they are as a student. So the colleges understand that and are forgiving of that, and allow you to not send the score. Some other colleges, a lot of like the Southern colleges, feel otherwise and feel an SAT or an ACT standardizes things, so they want you to send a score, and that is required. Something that we're used to back in like the 2000s when everyone submitted a score. So it's just something that like we talk about a lot now. And I know the whole standardized testing is like a whole nother avenue and a whole nother ballgame that I won't, get into too much detail about, but it's something that, you should talk to your student early on and, test and practice and, figure out what test is right for them and figure out like a plan to take those standardized tests.
Jenna,
Yes.
can I
Yeah.
break the seal?
Yeah.
So I saw that it said that if you're applying in a STEM field, regardless, does that mean regardless of whether it's a southern school or a northern school or regardless of school, if you are applying in a STEM field, you probably should submit scores?
Yeah, so the STEM fields are the most like they're not going to be required, right? Like it's not, for take the University of Michigan, like their test optional, right? So that's for the entire student body, entire undergraduate population, but it's not like for engineering kids they have to send a score, right? But that it's not like that. But for engineering, computer science, those are like the cream of the crop applicants because it's so competitive and they keep those classes really small. So they're going, something that can separate the students is going to be a test score. So they're going to be a little bit more willing to accept that student if they have a test score.
Understood.
It's not to say like always, but oftentimes it can make a difference, especially like if you're killing it in like the math section.
Sure.
That's what they'll look at a lot.
Sure.
Great question. Do you have any other questions about that? I mean, I could do like a 5-hour presentation on this. So like,
No, it's all good. All good.
Okay, so a little bit of just like the overview of the holistic review. Don't fret if the test scores aren't where you want them to be. The colleges are looking at lots of different factors. The grades are still going to be the most important thing. That is a transcript, that is your final year-end grades. That also does include what classes you take and like what honors classes you decide to take, what AP classes you decide to take. So the colleges will look at that. They'll see the grade trends. They'll see freshman year is going to be, a little bit weighted less than junior year since that's the most recent year, right? So they're also going to be looking at essays and extracurricular activities and teacher recommendations. So it's, beyond just your numbers. And like what we do a lot at our firm is really help with like, can't help with the grades, like all that much, but we help with like the class selection. Before when you guys were talking, it was, the guidance counseling department not always like recognizing the importance of certain math classes or certain AP classes. So we do a lot of like, okay, you want to be an engineer? Like we have to get to BC calculus by senior year. So like, what can we do starting in 9th grade, 10th grade, to get on that trajectory? Or even if it's like a nursing major, like what classes can you take? Or, hey, like you're not really an AP student, but maybe you can push yourself to take like an easier AP that will like look good for college and like won't really like burn you out too much, right? Or so we're constantly having these discussions about what classes to take to show that you're college ready. We're also having conversations about what extracurricular activities you should get involved in. We're in such a great area that there's so much access to like community service and sports and clubs and internships. So I haven't hit up Mark to see if anyone could work here, but I usually do stuff like that. Yeah, question. Yeah.
Find out, do you find that there's a certain amount of AP classes that actually makes a difference?
So it depends on the school. So like if my student, like last year really was gunning for like Vanderbilt, Penn, Cornell, and he goes to Livingston High School, which has access to 32 AP classes. So I was like, you have to take 14 by the time you graduate. I'm like a little psychotic.
Is that based on the amount that was available? Is that why?
I just knew that like senior year they let kids take 7, gym being the 8th class, gym being the one that you can't. And like I know there's people that are doing that and they're going to those schools. And I know that they're doing like 5 junior year and like 1 or 2 sophomore year. So like, but that is like the extreme. I would
But on the
like,
low end, is there a difference between like someone taking 1, 2, or 3 that matters? Like if you take 1, it's not gonna
yes.
do anything for you. You need to take 3 or 4 at least to do it.
Like I would say like 4 or 5 are probably good, right? That like I'm talking, for like a great state school, a great private university, but like, it also depends on the school. Like I've worked with students, I remember a Upper West Side public school that only offers 4 APs. So the student took 3 and that's, 75% and that was really good. And she's at UVA. But like there's also kids that literally can never get to 1 and they're going into college prep like the regular classes and they're getting A's and B's and like they're also doing like well, I mean they're not going to get into Harvard but like they're going to go to a school that like really suits them academically and they're going to graduate and they're going to be great and like so like it all kind of depends on the student. So but like when students come to me and they have these goals, like I'm going to tell them like this is what like this is what is needed for the goal, right? Like almost like anything else in life, if you want to like get into like a fitness goal, like you gotta do this, and you don't want to hear it sometimes, but and if you can't do that, like it's totally fine. It's just like it still apply, but like it might not work out for you,
Yes.
But I also always tell people that I took 1 AP in high school. So, but it's different now. So I think like 4 or 5 is healthy, and that's like over the time in high school. And some people, I think like building up is good. Like maybe like 1 sophomore year, 2 junior year, and then like 2 or 3 senior year. And there's also like different tiers of APs. Like AP physics is gonna look like much better to a college or more competitive to a college than like AP environmental science. Because like the college board sets the AP curriculum. So if you like know anything about College Board, which why would you? But like College Board, which is the company that runs the SAT company, they set the curriculum. So like the colleges and anyone in higher ed knows like what classes are a more complex curriculum, and like AP physics is like the hardest AP. So to a college, that's like impressive. Wow, you took that, you did well. Like you're clearly very, capable of college ready material. So, but it's all different and it all kind of depends. I hope that helps.
Yep, thank you.
Great. So, a little bit, again, I could probably do a 4-hour presentation on essays, but something else that we help with, which is like a big part of it, is the college essay. That's been around since like the 60s, I think. Someone actually found their college essay from like 1989, one of my clients, and showed me it, and her parents were moving out. It was cute. It was very different than the college essay now, but and she used words that are no longer appropriate in modern language today, which was really interesting to see as well. So the college essay is a 650 word essay about tell me about your story, tell me who you are. There's different prompts. We help students create, get their voice out, create a story. I hear every day, like, I'm not that interesting. Like I watched this video of this girl and she got hit by a truck and that didn't happen to me. And I'm like, did you want it to happen to you? Because it sounds like you didn't. She's like, maybe like for a good college essay. So, the reality is everyone's interesting in their own way. And, we find ways to have them shine through. Every college is going to need the college essay. And then depending on what colleges you add, there are more essays to write. So like the 14 AP kid, had to write like 30 essays for all of his colleges in total. But the average is more like 7 to 8 essays that we help our students with. Because certain colleges, like a Michigan, want the main essay, but then they also want a 650 word essay on why do you want to go to our school? So they can see that you're like a committed applicant. They also ask you, which is a common essay, to write about a community that you're a part of. And my students have fun with that essay. They might make something like compelling about their soccer community, or they make something compelling like they're in a Twitter community of like other comic book fans, right? So you can get like really kind of creative with what that definition is. But We work with a lot with the essay, that's like my bread and butter, and we, make sure that it's creative and polished and all of that. I know this is a lot of writing here, but we do focus a lot on these resumes. A little bit different than a work resume, but a document that can actually be more than one page for college, which highlights extracurricular activities and leadership and community service. We focus a lot on like how can you get involved in your community, in your school, and students do all different things, but we try to get them to like not just sign up for a soup kitchen just for the heck of it, but like to do something that they actually like and would help them with their major, would help them with like soft skills, would help them with their resume even like 5-6 years down the road when they have to apply for like a job or an internship. So I'm all about like doing things that you want to do, and that's gonna just get them to do things and get them to stand out and get them to show passion, and colleges will enjoy that. When you apply to college, the colleges do ask for up to 10 things. So I'm all about getting like 10 quality things over your time in high school, which sounds like a lot, but when it includes like babysitting gigs or even taking care of a sibling or a club team, a varsity team or JV team. So, just 10 things over high school is usually like a good number, and it's the number that they ask. Well, there's up to 10 slots, so I like to fill those 10 slots. You also need to ask 2 teachers for recommendation letters. So it's good to get your kids to connect with 2 teachers over their time in high school. And then there's also the option to get outside voices, like an outside coach or a mentor, to just show those character qualities and skills that your students have that the transcript wouldn't, because it's just a bunch of letters. There's a little bit more about financial aid and affordability. I won't go too much into this, but it's expensive. There, is a bunch of forms to fill out, and obviously, like, you can talk to me about this, you can talk to Bryce about this, but there are forms to fill out to get your financial aid to make sense for you, and they will go over that, I think, and talk about like the affordability. So there's a little bit more about like the overview and the trends, because I know that's usually a big thing here, is one of the reasons why colleges are getting more selected too is that their institutional priorities have changed. A lot of colleges are now focusing on different diverse students from, I was talking to a college the other day that's like recruiting more in like Nebraska rural communities, because like they don't have a lot of Nebraska students, right? And they're not necessarily targeting like New Jersey kids. We kind of go everywhere. So I think a lot of times, the families get frustrated when they hear of, different states having these chance, and they're focusing on their international population. Sometimes they're focusing on their legacy, their first generation applicants. So it's just like part of, what's been going on, and, colleges give more competitive edges to like recruited athletes, musicians. So it does happen. It just, makes it harder maybe if you don't fit into one of those boxes, but it's just something to know when you go in. And, eventually, what we do with our students is talk about if you get deferred or waitlisted, how that would alter your application. So sometimes like people have asked me, like who gets accepted and why, and this was like for a presentation that I did, which was like a little bit more of like a, I don't know, like wanted the more like Ivy fancy school names listed on here, but we definitely have like the whole gamut of colleges that we work with. So, this is just like a few things, like a nationally ranked wrestler, got into Cornell with like a not so hot GPA, but like he was amazing at wrestling, right? And like a class president and valedictorian. So we've had like some great kids, but like I mentioned, we have also like our most popular schools are like the large state schools. We've had students that have 1.5 GPAs that do well, so we've had success with different types of applicants. And it's just all about, putting the right list and the right profile, and you'll be successful. So a little bit, I'm gonna go like too much into this because, focusing a lot about mental health and well-being. That's something that we do a lot of when we're talking with our students. I don't want to like be too much helps with anything. Okay, I'll go through this quick.
I'll make up time.
What?
I'll make up time.
Okay. Okay, so a little bit more like when we're building your list, so a lot about that is like what's going to be good for you. And we talk about the academic fit, we talk about the social fit with our students, and we talk about the financial fit. Kind of like all obvious things with things that we really focus on when we're putting together our students' lists. We try to give a list to our families like early on, like sophomore and junior year, so that they can like go start to visit schools and tour schools and get excited about colleges, and big focus on this. We focus on reach schools, target schools, safety schools, a mix of like schools that are very selected for them. Target schools are where they're academically aligned, and safety schools are going to be where they're most likely to be accepted. And someone's safety school might be the next person reach school, so it's depending on the students. So some of the highly selective schools are looking for different things like GPA and test scores. This is really for everyone: extracurricular activities, essays, demonstrated interest. Which is also why we get students to go and visit, because there are definitely a lot of colleges that track whether you go and visit. So we try to inform our families about that, because that can give you a competitive edge. We talked about recommendations, and then like the three here: passion, curiosity, creativity, and leadership. I guess four, would all focus on that, like within the essays and finding that through those essays, and then the institutional priorities. Different things about cost. I won't go too much into this, but there's like the published tuition versus like what it actually costs in the end. We focus a lot on merit scholarships, because that is not based on your income. That's just based on your achievement.
So are you able to then
Yeah.
see what someone's courses are in high school? Let's say they're in 10th grade, for example, or
Yeah.
going 11th, and like, what do I need to fill the gap that I'm missing something
Yeah.
that's gonna, like, I don't wanna be one class off and go, God, I could have taken it easily, I just didn't.
Yeah.
You're looking at the merit side and saying, hey, you only need to increase your GPA a little bit here, and then you need this course, otherwise that merit's not gonna help you.
Yeah, so we do that like not only just like to get into the schools, but then like to get merit. And there's some schools that like University of Arizona and Michigan State and Alabama that like have a chart online that are like, you need this GPA and you get $15,000, and this GPA to get $20,000. It's actually great. Not every school does that, but like, so we can pretty much tell you before you apply like what you're gonna get in terms of scholarship. Financial aid is different. Like, I don't know what you make, so it's hard to like know that. But as far as scholarship goes, yeah. And like I've had students one of my students like is on a full ride for Michigan State right now. And he wants to go to med school, and like parents are from the UK, and they're like used to like cheap college. So they're like, great, free, awesome. But and he's wants to go to med school, and med school is like $100,000. So he is not going to be in $200,000 worth of debt already. He's going in for free. So, we've had students get a lot of money for our schools, but then, a lot of families in Jersey like to go for like the best or the most selective school. So they don't often pick the one that gave them the most amount of money. They pick the one that gives them the least amount of money, because, it's like anything else. So we respect whatever decision they make, but I would say like almost every student we work with gets scholarship from at least like one of their schools. It's just a matter of like how much and what they get. Here's some like fun facts about college. Some fun numbers. I'm sure the people that work here know this. So it's expensive. And I think this is just like not to scare people away. I think that we've had situations in the past where like I think people look at college tuition as like monopoly money and they like don't think it's real. So I like to say like no, it is this much money. Sometimes it's not, but you know, like Columbia doesn't give any merit aid, so you know that will be what it costs.
Did I read that correctly? It said that they're, around the average is $1 million more of earnings over their lifetime. That's interesting. I mean, it's not that much money though. It's only $23,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean, like that's like a national average, so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like a whole like movement of like.
Just when you say 1 million, it sounds like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like it's, the average is about, you know, from 22 to 65. It's
I
like
think
23
we're
grand.
investing the money in something else. Is that what you're trying to say?
I'm just put 200 grand into a brokerage.
There's definitely a movement of there's definitely like a movement, you know, I hear about all the time of like not going to college and like Google now, right, is like doing like online certifications. I mean, that's not really how it hasn't been taken off like under my population, but like
Sure.
I mean like that, like I'm not like all about like you have to go to college, you know. I would say like every year we get like one kid that like ends up going into like a trade, you know. Like I've had students leave to go to like makeup cosmetology school, yeah. So like hair make, I mean this one girl had like a thriving hair and makeup business, and I was like, you should not go to college, like do not slow this down, you know. So college would just like derail her and make her slow her business down, and she was building this big business. So it's definitely not for everyone. So.
Yeah, I think more
Yeah.
what I was gathering, like all kidding aside, is that since the cost of college seems to vary so much,
Yeah.
the cost of the college you pick should be very much considered, because there's
Yeah.
like, you know, if there's a college that can give you a degree that is at 3 times less the cost, but your income is likely going to be about the same, that's, you know, and I never thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is like there's absolutely no way to predict.
Yeah.
You know, like I was just on the phone the other day with a mom, and the son went to Illinois, which was his safety school. So he wasn't like super thrilled about it. I actually didn't work with him. I like worked with him for like a few hours. And he was going to Illinois and wasn't like super happy about it. And you know, I guess long story short, he's a senior now, and he like really pushed himself to get this one consulting job, and he just got an entry-level job for $150,000 out of their engineering school. And like I guess like they never expected that because it wasn't this like top ranked engineering school as compared to like some of the other programs, right? So like there's no way to predict like what you're going to get. So I think that's like the mystery of it. So, you know, I mean, we hear people all the time that are like, if you're gonna go to a state school, like I just want them to go to Rutgers, or you know, I don't know. There's like so many different kind of theories about it, but I guess that's anything.
Yeah,
you know?
sure.
Like
sure.
if you have a Porsche, like does it drive better than another? Like
Yeah.
you know. So a lot of it though is like, you know, the I don't know, feeling like good about where you're going to the
Well, is there data
parents.
around job placement too? Like
There is, but it's not like super accurate. I mean, yeah, you can only just say, but like, you know, it's I would say like I swear to God, like every college I ever tour and go said like 98% of our kids have jobs in 6 months.
Right.
But what about the internship side? I feel like that seems to be more important, is what colleges are offering.
Yeah.
Or not even just offering, but really helping get these kids into internship
Yeah.
programs.
And that's interesting. You,
That might be different job.
yeah, I mean, a lot of that is also very like major dependent too. Like if you contacted like I'll just use my college, the University of Maryland. If you contacted like the English department of the University of Maryland, like maybe they're not having like all these great internships, but like the business school might have more of the, you know, like, or the computer science school there might have this like way more lucrative internships that are happening for them. So it kind of is like very dependent, and like, but like also there's kids, like one of my students went to NYU Stern, okay, the NYU Stern school is like a top 5 school. And I just caught up with the mom the other day because she texted me looking for a career coach, and I was like, oh, what's going on? She's like, oh, you know, won't say the girl's name, but she, she just graduated in May and hasn't found a job. And I looked her up on LinkedIn and she had not one internship. And I'm like, you were at NYU Stern, and like, what did you do all day? Being at a top business school, being in Manhattan, where you could find any internship you want. So like, she didn't go and apply for one. So like, the college doesn't always just like hand you over the job, Like, I mean, I talked to like Joey, our cousin who went to Brown, and she's been out of a job for like many years now. And I was like, isn't the Brown Alumni Network helping you? And she's like, not really. You'd be surprised. So like, so it just depends. I mean, like, you hear all the success stories all the time of like who went to, school X in the middle of nowhere and is a billionaire now. So I don't know, it just depends. And that's like kind of what makes it hard. So you have to like, use the best discretion at that time and know. But yeah, there's definitely like a lot that goes into it. And we work with families through May 1st of senior year, which is the National Decision Day. So that's the day you have to decide, and that's the day where you have all your offers. So we'll talk about like, hey, you got into the Penn State Business School, you got into Rutgers, which is cheaper, but you didn't get into business and you want to do business. So like, should you go for the business degree or go for like the cheaper school, and what's it worth it for an extra $30,000 a year to go with the degree you want? Like, we'll just like make these conversations, come alive and like just talk about it. And again, at the end of the day, it's like a family decision, but I'll definitely help guide people along. And yeah, but it's getting crazy out there.
You touched on working with kids to build up their high school curriculum.
Yeah.
What grade are you getting clients in?
Yeah, so I would say like it's about half like sophomore year and probably about maybe like a third sophomore year, a third junior year, a third early senior year. But sophomore year, winter is probably like the most common because that is when the counseling department reaches out to them and says, hey, little Johnny, you have to come and make your schedule for junior year. They don't know what classes they should take. They realize it's probably important. They realize that their guidance counselor probably doesn't really like have their finger on the pulse of it. So they reach out to a private counselor to start. But I mean, I think like freshman year is fine to make your sophomore year schedule. Like we'll get some calls for that too. I mean, like 8th grade is kind of too early. But I think like freshman, sophomore year, you don't have a lot of flexibility with your schedule. Like the APs aren't really offered until junior year. So it's really just kind of like, did you get into the honors class or did you get into the regular class? Like you have to take the language, foreign language, that's a big thing. Sophomore year going to junior year, like I want to drop Spanish. And I'm like, let's not drop Spanish. So, whereas freshman and sophomore year, you have to take a set of requirements. So you don't need our help like as much. I mean, it'd be nice, but it's not as
There could be some classes that they need to take to be able to get to the higher classes. To
Yeah,
get
yeah,
schools.
yeah.
So it helps, going into your freshman year to kind of start building that foundation based on what you're going to accomplish.
Yeah, no, I mean,
So
we
the
definitely are
sooner
getting
the sooner
yeah.
you get involved.
Yeah, I mean, people are earlier and earlier each year. So, yeah, and there's like, I mean, I'm all about like touring schools early too, like, go on spring break freshman year, why not? So, yeah. Any other questions? These are good. Okay, great. I'm over to Brace.
Yeah, so
Ready for it.
thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
So-
great. Yeah.
I'll get through this pretty quickly because I think the more important part is like talking afterwards too.
Yeah.
Right, so a lot of what I'm gonna cover like overlaps a little bit. But so my name is Bob Renshaw. I'm one of the advisors here at Fountainhead. And like it says on the wall, right, it kind of starts with your story. So we are a comprehensive planning firm, and college planning is just one part of your picture, right? So we don't look at it as a vacuum. It's really important, right? It's an emotional and financial decision, right? So we understand that, but it is just one part of your picture, right? Because one thing I say is you can, based on your situation, right? You can't borrow for retirement, you can borrow for school, right? So we want to take that all into account as we're kind of building out your plan. And we touch on a lot of the same things, but what we do complements the detail of what Jen and her team do, right? So we brush on, but we don't get into the depth and breadth that her team. So, a couple things we want to touch on is, preparation, strategy, acceptance, and selection. And a lot of what we focus on is, right, don't focus on the cost of college, right? Because yes, the sticker price, which said it's shocking, right? But you don't usually pay sticker price, and there's ways around it. So as what we ended with, right? So I think we have a takeaway for you, but we do recommend kind of laying out a schedule, right? So you know what to start thinking about. Right in freshman year, again, we talked again, you want to start thinking about your course selection, starting to build your resume, right? So correct for wrong, but you don't want, I don't think colleges are really excited if they see everyone like their junior year and senior year. And now I work, now I have 1 year of a club, I have 1 year of sport, right? You want to have consistency. That goes a long way. Going into sophomore year, that's when you're gonna start thinking about test prep, kind of continue to build your resume, and we'll get into the positive of increasing your test scores and what that means monetarily. And then junior year, that's where, again, you're visiting colleges, you're choosing between ACT and SAT. Maybe you're tutoring for honors classes, test preparation, and you're starting to think about what schools you're going to. So it's funny you talk about Alabama, right? So with the Common App, right? So a lot of schools, just by submitting a Common App, you will automatically be eligible for some merit, right? And Alabama is one of them, and they have the most detail online. That's why I kind of use them as an example.
Both in the know.
Right. So just by submitting a Common App, this is what you're eligible for. And there's a lot of schools like that. But you also got to be cautious too, because some schools actually, in addition to this, for other scholarships, you got to apply direct. They have their own scholarship process or scholarship application, for other merit and awards. Right. So here, you can do the math, right? Just by increasing, 2 points, 100 points means, anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 a year, right? So it's real money. And when you're thinking about where to put your resources, putting it to a tutor or college prep, could be worth it. Again, I won't go into, but you want to start thinking about your list of schools and something. So I have a junior in college and a senior in high school, right? So one thing which, and again, I can't take credit for it, it's more my wife, but anytime we were anywhere, we visited a school. If we drove by a school, we looked at it, right? So because it really goes a long way, because for my daughter, she knew exactly what she wanted before as she started picking her schools, right? She wanted more of a melting pot urban area versus, an enclosed, beautiful campus with nothing around it, with access to a city.
Bob, sorry, were you doing that, like, how early were you doing that? Were you looking at just like stopping in schools when you drove by a town?
Well, selfishly, I love like college and college sports. So
Yeah.
anytime I go visit, I would go look at a college stadium.
Yeah.
But I would say probably like middle school.
Wow.
Like if we're like anywhere, like, we took a trip to California. Both my kids are probably saying East Coast, but I drove them through UCLA. We saw San Diego, right? Just to get different feels of school.
That's really cool.
So that's not something you could read in a book or someone could kind of tell you until you really
Yeah.
experience it.
Yeah.
And selfishly, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right, so again, this is like, it says net cost is all that matters, right? If you're looking at schools, granted, here is MIT and Case Western, right? Both have, again, this is a little bit older. I know they're expensive more, but for concept, right? Both might have the same sticker price, but MIT's not given any merit, right? Or minimal where, a school like Case Western is a great academic school, you can get $20,000 merit, and here you're, 300,000 versus, 200, right? So again, to the point where, are you going to get a much better job at MIT versus Case Western? And again, we don't know that, but when we're looking at it, we have, we'll help evaluate everything from that standpoint. Because we have a software, it's not proprietary, it's called College Aid Pro, and we use it with all of our clients. And what it enables you to do is, we'd say, give us 10, 15, 20 schools, it doesn't matter, right? So we take all the schools, put them into the software, and it enables you can get as detailed as you want. We give access to our clients where you can even put, right, we're talking, there's needs-based aid, which is more like income-based, and merit aid, And if you put in your student profile and information from your tax return, it'll let you know what your, they call it EFC, right? Expected family contribution, what, I guess they calculate that you're able to pay, versus, and then if you're able to pay, it's more than what the school costs, you don't get anything. This is just to show, right? There's merit and need, like we're saying, right? So some of the bigger name schools, right? You might hear they meet 100% of their net need, but that's for people who are eligible financially, right? They have financial need. So those schools will pay 100% for needs based, but they won't provide any merit. Where there's other really good schools where you can go to and get merit. Here we kind of talk about visiting schools, right? So again, we talked about it, but you're going to find out, like my son and daughter were totally different, right? Where my daughter wanted urban, access to a city, where my son Luke wants the biggest college football, college town fraternities, like you get, and hopefully a good end. But like it'll show, and what this pulls from, and I'll talk to, there's something called the common data set, which I'll get into, and the software kind of pulls all that data and it helps you see the criteria for each school. The average GPA, SAT, ACT, things like that. Talk about demonstrated interest, right? That's real, right? So for schools that we visited, where I knew there's a list actually that shows like schools that take demonstrated interest into account, and also the common data set will actually show you if they evaluate it or not. And for example, we visited Clemson, so I had to do a virtual tour. We did a physical tour. He emailed every person that we talked to, the counselor, the business school, right? So those things add up. And in college things. So this is the common data set. I extracted just one piece just because I feel like this is not out there as much. I mean, I know it's something that Jen and her team probably focus on, but right, these are kind of the non-financial items, right? So I'm sorry if it's small, but right, there's academic and non-academic, right? So when you're looking at the schools, and if you start in freshman, sophomore year, these are things you got to think about then, right? Starting junior, senior year might be too late. But for Clemson, very important, obviously rigor of your classes and GPA, right? So if you're not taking honor and AP, right, you're not going to maybe qualify for the rigor for those schools. I mean, maybe not. I'm not saying take 14, that's insane. But if if you're taking 3 to 4, 2 to 4 a year, it expresses that you had the rigor, and with a decent GPA, you can get a look at those schools. So it talks about class rank, GPA, but you can see here, like standardized test scores. For here, it's not as important as it might be at other schools, where the recommendation is considered. And then these are all non-academic, right? Unfortunately, this is more of a numbers school, according to this, right? Where a lot of the intangible stuff where you can't read in the paper, they don't really put as much emphasis on it, but other schools do. But I found this very useful as we're helping kind of clients develop their list and build out their high school program. Application strategy. Again, this is, I won't even pretend to know anything close to what Jen and her team do, but this is important, right? Some schools, right, if you want your best chance, it might be an early decision, right? I don't know, but like I always hear Lehigh, like if you really want to go there and you're borderline, if you don't do ED, you might not get in there, right? So there's a specific strategy for each one of those, which is really important to get into those schools. And that's something else that Jen and her team can help you with. Essays, I won't talk about that. And the only thing is, when you mention one essay, that's the one that goes with the Common App, right? So how many words is it?
650.
650, right? So there's that one essay that now with Common App that gets distributed to all schools, and then depending on the different schools, there's something more. And then, once you accept it, right, you want to go back to your list, right? So for example, all kids are going anywhere from 10 to 20 schools, right? So I think my son did 14, right? So, but you're not gonna go to all 14, right? So there are some schools that you apply to. Because you wanna have that good list, and I'm gonna skip through it quickly, but we talked about having safety, safety, target, and reach, right? What we're finding recently in the last 2 years is that when clients are sharing their list with us, it's like and they share their client and their student's profile. Every school on that list is a reach school, right? So, we really try to help manage your expectations and, without saying, like getting a quick yes is a good thing emotionally, right? Even though they're, like I had my son and daughter apply to schools that I knew they weren't gonna go to, they're rolling a mission, they come back really quick and getting a yes helps them, right? Where I had my nephew, very bright kid, perfect ACT, applied to every Ivy, he applied to 14 schools, didn't get into 10 of them. He ended up going faster. I mean, he did okay. But still, I mean, that's a lot of no's out of the gate where you're thinking you're actually gonna go to UPenn. I mean, that's not the case. So what I did with our kid, right? So he narrowed it down and then, so we did our schools visits, and then you narrowed down the list, right? And you have your top 5 where now you want to really look at them from a financial perspective, right? Because you get your financial offer from all the schools and also from a program perspective. So for my kids, we went and back to each school and then dug deeper into the business program. Actually, my daughter was fashion design, right? So we went in and looked at each specific program. So we compared a school where, it'll help make the decision. And once you get all financial letters, we've helped clients, so you could appeal, right? So if 2 similar schools, one school's giving you 20,000, this school's giving you 40,000, it doesn't hurt to appeal, right? So we help clients write appeal letters to the school and say, I really want to go there. Economics is, it's really important, but so is affordability. Would you reconsider?
So Bob, would you say that would be something that you might be on general board, that would be more of a, hey, I want to apply to these, 6, 7, 8, 10 schools that they like, but hey, you need to add these other ones in that are more competitive schools, so that if this one doesn't offer you enough, if this one does, you can use it to play against each other? Or does that not really work that way?
If you're competing schools, a firm like yours is gonna know the schools much more, but.
Like competitive schools don't negotiate with you, it's like a little bit more of like Syracuse would, like Sacred Heart.
Yeah, I'm not saying Vanderbilt.
Let's stay away from the.
No, but there's.
When you go towards the normal schools, not the $80,000 schools, like if you're talking like $40,000 to $60,000 schools, whatever they are now, I don't know what they cost, but.
They're just
The average
schools.
No, it's just.
It's more the private.
It's not the private echelon.
Yeah, like
There's
you
very
can,
few people going to the top of the echelon, I would say, in general, right? Most people
Yeah.
are just average schools,
yeah,
that, maybe names that we don't all always know.
yeah,
Or think
yeah,
about.
like
But
fair,
they
that's the same,
they
like,
must compete against other
yeah,
commissions
like that's the
anyway,
same, like Fairfield, Sacred Heart, like Providence, like those, like Seton Hall.
right? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so like those can,
But
those
if
are
I
like
say, yeah, I'm looking at
negotiate.
Seton Hall, but there's a competing school at Seton Hall Seton Hall itself competes against, mentally, physically, I don't know how you wanna look at that. They're like, well, I don't think you're really going there, I'd rather be in my school.
Yeah, they definitely do that a little bit, and so like we help with the negotiations, yeah. Yeah, so like we'll email them and say like, here are all the other offers that I got, and they might, if another school is giving them more, they'll like match the offer, they'll meet them halfway,
But
yeah.
it's important to have schools that do compete against each other, reminds me like, I'm curious.
Little, yeah, a little
Or is it
bit,
apples?
not really, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Well, the worst they could say is no.
Yeah,
Too, right? So.
Well, does it cost to apply to each school, right?
right, yeah,
You're not just gonna go apply to, 100 schools. It's
Right.
a lot of money for that.
right,
But and the one thing is, right, is with FAFSA, right, a lot of schools won't even consider you for merit if you don't compete.
yeah,
FAFSA.
yeah, I mean, the past is like completely crazy right now,
Oh, it's a. Yes,
Don't you
Yeah.
have to do it then?
who knows,
Yeah.
yeah.
but some schools won't
Yeah.
won't consider you for the merit, even like Alabama, like if you don't have the FAFSA in, you won't get the merit. That's from what I saw, I mean, I could be wrong, and again, more the
Yeah,
details than us. but
yeah,
that's
it's
from
good
what
to
we-
fill it out,
From
it's
what
like,
we've seen.
yeah,
And again, and what we try to do is just be a guide, right? And what the software also does is, right, so you have your list of schools. It'll show the net cost, right? So it'll show you if you do get any needs based, it'll show you needs based, and then it'll show you any merit. Now, the merit, they do their best guess based on like the grids and it'll list every scholarship, but it'll give you an idea of what the net cost of those schools will be. So when you kind of can compare them, you can, narrow them down, make a decision, right? Because again, come back to your overall financial plan, right? That's one piece of your plan, right? And not only are you saving for retirement and maybe for other saving goals, but now we gotta come up with a strategy to pay for school as well. And borrowing may or may not be part of that. So, again, I know there's a lot of overlap, so I didn't want to spend too much time.
The most important thing is like what you said is that people come to you with all these reach schools, and not only is that bad for like your emotional well-being, but it's bad for money. Because the reach schools aren't gonna give you those scholarships. It's gonna be the ones that are like the CG school, the target school, right? Because it's like, wow, I really want Sam at my school. Like our average GPA is a 3.5 and he has a 4.2. Like we have to have this kid, so we're gonna entice him by giving him a ton of money, or his scores make us look better, right? So versus like the school, which is a reach school, where it's like, oh, Sam like barely got in here, like I'm not gonna give him any money, he's lucky to be here, right? So it's like those safety schools, like it's all about the list, you know? So like you can have $40,000 options, like, you know, like, for sure. There's like, I mean, look at Alabama, you know?
But I mean, I could use so comparing schools, I know you said Fairfield. Fairfield's one that they give aid and they're very flexible to compete together.
Yeah,
right, so.
Correct, that's why I mentioned that.
Yeah, no, I know, so my niece is at Fordham, right,
Okay,
so
yeah.
she applied to Fordham, Sacred Heart, and Fairfield. Right,
Yes.
Fairfield gave the most money, where I was surprised, but actually Fordham ended up meeting Fairfield's offer.
Yeah.
Right, and my niece is.
Yeah, the Catholic schools are
Yeah.
good for that, the Jesuit / and/or Catholic schools do it more. The state schools are really horrible for it.
And a lot of state schools don't give money at all.
Someone also mentioned to me, and I don't know if there's a list somewhere, but I mean, it seems like a lot of our high schools are also feeder schools, so you're sometimes not, I haven't told you that, it's just competing against the rest of the board, you're just competing against a district school.
Yeah,
If there's, you know, a high application rate for
Yeah.
a particular school.
Yeah.
How do you figure that out?
yeah, I mean, so every high school has something called a school profile. It's on public information. It's really important. It's on the guidance website and it's a 2 to 4 page document of your high school. So it'll show you, even if most of the high schools in New Jersey no longer rank, but it'll actually show you like this GPA is in the top 20% versus top 30 versus top 40, top 70, top 80, right? So it'll tell you where you fall. So it like you are evaluated within the context of like how you fare in that high school. They'll tell you like what the average test scores are, they'll show you a list of all the classes, they'll show you a list of like the clubs and which ones are like award-winning clubs, so yeah. So if you Google like Summit High School profile, it'll come up.
And
And, yeah.
sorry.
No, that's it.
No, and I think it's, not so Mark, I think it's scored, where actually, I know, we're at Westfield, right, so. I
Yeah,
think
you
if
guys
go and
turn
score,
on to score.
yeah, so we're scored now, so, if Sam, she goes down rabbit holes, but she'll look in and
Yeah.
she'll pull up every school and show you every kid that applied from Westfield the last 2 years, and your star, where you kind of rank in that mix.
Yeah,
And it'll show you, was a test option, was it not, so that just kind of, again. My wife goes on a rabbit hole all the time, she's in it for like hours, made herself nuts, but again, it just helps you as you're trying to build out the schools that you're going for. And build out that list, you know, you wanna kind of, as you build those different, you know, safety, to help kind of build that out.
I can say, just from my experience working with Bob, with a couple of my clients over the last few years on, using that software, College Aid Pro.
College program.
To what Jenna was saying before about like being careful not applying to colleges that you just never had any chance of getting into anyway, or you know, from an emotional well-being perspective. The experience I had was a family that had really high expectations. They had done what I thought was as much prep work as I've seen anybody do. They came with a huge list of colleges, and Bob put all that data through this software, and it really helped simplify the search for them. And I mean, this was a somewhat unique situation, but they went from being prepared to pay about $50,000 a year to go to the specific school, and they lived in New York. They wound up sending their kid to one of the City University of New York schools, and it was free the first 2 years. And they're on pace to he's on pace to have a really good education in a STEM field at a really good school system for a fraction of the cost, just because like they the vast amount of decisions were a little bit more simplified and consolidated for them, so so yeah, I'll just be an advocate after that experience.
And I know we're gonna be here, so if anyone has any questions, we'll get rid of it to help out, and that's something, we've more than happy to, share software in any place.
Lots of stories,
Yeah, sure.
examples, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's helpful, thank you.